As Sarah slipped the engagement ring onto her finger while Emma cheered and her students applauded, Marcus reflected on how a single moment of openness to unexpected possibilities had transformed all their lives. The best investments, he realized, weren't always financial. Sometimes they were investments in human potential and the courage to believe that everyone deserves a chance to shine. 2 months after Sarah had started her full-time teaching position, Marcus received an unexpected call that would test everything they had built together. He was in his office when his assistant informed him that a reporter from the city newspaper wanted to speak with him about his unusual hiring practices. "Mr. Chen, this is Jennifer Martinez from the City Herald." The voice on the phone was crisp and professional. "I'm working on a story about successful homeless individuals in our community, and your name came up in connection with Sarah Mitchell. Could you comment on your decision to hire someone living on the streets to work with your daughter?" Marcus felt his protective instincts kick in immediately. "I'm not sure what angle you're pursuing, Ms. Martinez, but I hired a qualified teacher who happened to be experiencing temporary housing difficulties. Sarah's professional credentials and abilities speak for themselves. But surely you were concerned about safety issues, background checks, the appropriateness of allowing a homeless person access to your child and home?" "I was concerned about finding the best possible education for my daughter," Marcus replied firmly. "Sarah has exceeded every expectation. She's now a full-time teacher at Riverside Academy and continues to provide exceptional tutoring for Emma." After ending the call, Marcus immediately phoned Sarah at school to warn her about the potential media attention. Her reaction surprised him. "I expected this might happen eventually," Sarah said calmly. "Success stories about homeless individuals sometimes attract media interest. I'm not ashamed of my past circumstances, but I am concerned about how publicity might affect Emma and the school." That evening, Marcus called a family meeting with Emma and Sarah to discuss the situation. They gathered in his living room, and Marcus explained about the reporter's call. "Will they write mean things about Sarah?" Emma asked, her young face creased with worry. "They might focus on sensational aspects rather than the real story," Marcus admitted. "Some people make assumptions about homeless individuals that aren't fair or accurate." Emma was quiet for a moment, then looked directly at Sarah. "Sarah, you're the best teacher I've ever had. You made me love learning. If people don't understand that, they're just wrong." Sarah smiled at Emma's fierce loyalty. "Thank you, sweetheart. Whatever happens, I want you to know that working with you and your father has been the most rewarding experience of my career." Taito. Newspaper article appeared 3 days later with the headline, "Billionaire's Gamble, Hiring Homeless Woman as Child's Tutor Pays Off." To Marcus's relief, the article was largely positive, focusing on Sarah's success story and the innovative teaching methods she had brought to both Emma's education and Riverside Academy. The article quoted Mrs. Williams extensively. "Sarah Mitchell has transformed our science program. Her teaching methods are creative, engaging, and highly effective. Her personal circumstances when Mr. Chen first met her are irrelevant compared to her professional qualifications and natural teaching ability. However, the publicity also brought unexpected consequences." Marcus's phone began ringing constantly with interview requests, and several other wealthy families reached out, asking if Sarah could tutor their children as well. More significantly, the story caught the attention of Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the superintendent of the city's public school district. She called Marcus directly to discuss Sarah's teaching methods and their potential application in schools serving underprivileged communities. "Mr. Chen, I've been following the story about Ms. Mitchell, and I'm impressed by what I've learned about her approach to education," Dr. Rodriguez said. "We have schools in our district where creative, hands-on teaching methods could make a tremendous difference for students who struggle with traditional instruction." "Sarah would be honored to share her methods," Marcus replied. "She's passionate about helping all children learn effectively. Would she be interested in conducting workshops for our teachers? We could offer compensation for her time, and it might help other educators reach students who aren't thriving in conventional classroom settings." When Marcus shared this opportunity with Sarah, her eyes lit up with excitement. "This could help so many children," she said immediately. "I'd love to show other teachers how hands-on learning can make abstract concepts accessible and engaging." That weekend, as Sarah prepared for her first teacher workshop, Emma made an announcement that caught both adults completely off guard. "Think Sarah should be my mom," Emma said matter-of-factly as they worked together in the garden. Marcus nearly dropped the watering can he was holding. Sarah froze in the middle of transplanting tomato seedlings. "Emma, what do you mean?" Marcus asked carefully. "I mean, I love Sarah, and she loves me, and she makes you happy too, Daddy. I see how you smile more when she's around, and she takes care of us like moms do. So I think you should marry her and make her my official mom." Sarah's face flushed, bright red, and she looked at Marcus with a mixture of panic and something else he couldn't quite identify. "Sweetheart," Marcus said gently, "Sarah is a wonderful friend and teacher, but marriage is something that adults decide together. It's not that simple." "Why not?" Emma persisted with the logical directness that children possess. "You both like each other, I can tell, and we're already like a family. We eat dinner together, we go places together, and Sarah helps me with everything just like a mom would." Marcus realized that Emma had been observing their interactions more carefully than he had thought. It was true that he had developed feelings for Sarah beyond professional respect and friendship. Her kindness, intelligence, and genuine care for Emma had touched his heart in ways he hadn't expected. But he had been careful not to act on those feelings, uncertain whether Sarah might feel pressured by her dependence on his generosity. The last thing he wanted was to put her in an uncomfortable position where she felt obligated to reciprocate romantic interest. Sarah stood up slowly, brushing dirt from her hands. "Emma, your father and I have a wonderful working relationship and friendship, but love and marriage are very complicated adult decisions that involve many factors. Do you love us?" Emma asked directly. Sarah looked at both of them, her expression vulnerable and honest. "Yes, I do love both of you. You've become my family in every way that matters. But that doesn't automatically mean marriage is the right choice." Marcus felt his heart racing. Sarah had just admitted she loved them. The question was whether her feelings for him were romantic or simply deep gratitude and affection. "Sarah," he said quietly, "could we talk privately later tonight?" Emma looked between them with satisfaction. "I think you should. And I think you should listen to me because kids know things about love that grown-ups sometimes forget." That evening, after Emma was asleep, Marcus and Sarah walked through his garden under the soft glow of landscape lighting. The conversation they needed to have was delicate, but Emma's directness had made it unavoidable. "I want you to know that I would never want you to feel pressured about anything," Marcus began. "You've built an independent life now with your teaching job, and I don't want you to think your housing situation or our working relationship puts you under any obligation." "I appreciate that," Sarah replied softly. "But Marcus, what I told Emma was true. I do love you both. Somewhere along the way, this stopped being just a job, or even just a friendship for me." Marcus stopped walking and turned to face her. "For me too. I think I started falling in love with you the day I watched you teaching Emma about multiplication with those pebbles. But I wasn't sure if your feelings were romantic or if you were just grateful for the help I was able to provide." Sarah smiled, her eyes reflecting the garden lights. "It started with gratitude, I won't lie about that. You saved my life when you offered me this opportunity. But it became love when I saw what a devoted father you are, how hard you worked to give Emma the best life possible, and how you treated me with dignity when you had every reason to be suspicious." Marcus reached for her hands. "Emma was right about one thing. We already are like a family. I can't imagine our lives without you in them." "So what do we do now?" Sarah asked. "We take it slowly," Marcus replied. "We date properly. We make sure this is right for all of us, especially Emma. And if it feels as right in 6 months as it does tonight, Then maybe we listen to the wisdom of an 8-year-old who sees love more clearly than the adults around her, Sarah finished with a laugh. 6 months later, on a beautiful spring day in the same garden where they had first talked about their feelings, Marcus proposed to Sarah with Emma's enthusiastic assistance. The little girl had insisted on helping choose the ring and had planned an elaborate surprise celebration involving all of Sarah's students from school. The homeless woman who had taught math through a school fence had become not only an award-winning teacher and educational innovator, but also the heart of a family that none of them could have imagined when their lives first intersected. Emma's butterfly project had taught them all about metamorphosis, the magical transformation that happens when conditions are right for change. Sometimes, the most beautiful changes begin with the smallest acts of kindness between strangers who are brave enough to see potential rather than circumstances. 3 weeks later, Marcus could hardly believe the transformation he was witnessing. Emma bounded out of school each day with genuine excitement about learning, and her grades had improved dramatically across all subjects. But the changes went far beyond academics. "Daddy, did you know that butterflies taste with their feet?" Emma announced over breakfast, her eyes sparkling with the joy of discovery. "I did not know that," Marcus replied, smiling at his daughter's enthusiasm. "Where did you learn such an interesting fact?" "Sarah and I are doing a project about metamorphosis. We're actually raising monarch caterpillars and watching them turn into butterflies. Sarah says it's like a real-life magic trick that happens in nature." Marcus had noticed the small habitat Sarah had set up in the guest house, complete with caterpillars, milkweed plants, and a detailed observation journal that Emma was maintaining daily. It was exactly the kind of hands-on learning experience that made education come alive for his daughter. "Sarah also taught me about fractions using the butterfly wings," Emma continued excitedly. "Each wing has patterns, and we counted how many. Sections have spots compared to sections without spots. Math is everywhere." That afternoon, Marcus decided to observe one of Sarah's tutoring sessions from his home office window. What he saw made him pause his work entirely. Sarah had transformed his backyard into an outdoor classroom. Emma was measuring the garden with a tape measure, recording numbers in a notebook, and then using those measurements to calculate the area, a concept that would typically be taught to much older children. "If the garden is 12 feet long and 8 feet wide, how many square feet do we have for planting?" Sarah asked. Emma worked through the multiplication carefully. 12 times 8? That's 96 square feet. Perfect. Now, if each tomato plant needs 4 square feet of space, how many plants can we grow? Emma's face scrunched in concentration as she worked through the division problem. 96 divided by 4? 24 plants. Excellent, math detective. Work, Sarah praised. Tomorrow we'll learn about soil chemistry and what nutrients plants need to grow healthy. Marcus shook his head in amazement. Sarah was teaching advanced math, science, and practical life skills all through one integrated project. Emma was learning faster and retaining information better than ever before. His phone rang, interrupting his observations. It was Mrs. Williams from Emma's school. "Mr. Chen, I wanted to update you on Sarah's volunteer work with our after-school science program," she said, her voice carrying a tone of pleasant surprise. "How is it going?" "Remarkably well. Sarah has revitalized the entire program. Enrollment has doubled because children are so excited about her experiments and projects. She has a gift for making science accessible and fun." Marcus smiled, though he wasn't entirely surprised. "That's wonderful to hear." "There's something else," Mrs. Williams continued. "Our third-grade science teacher is retiring at the end of this semester. I'd like to offer Sarah the position if she's interested. Her teaching methods are exactly what our school needs." This was unexpected news. Marcus felt a complex mix of emotions, happiness for Sarah's opportunity, but also concern about how this might affect Emma's tutoring arrangement. "Have you discussed this with Sarah yet?" "I wanted to speak with you first, given your arrangement with her. I don't want to create any complications." "I appreciate that. Let me talk with Sarah tonight and see what she thinks." That evening, after Emma had gone to bed, Marcus found Sarah in the guest house preparing materials for the next day's lessons. Her small workspace was organized with educational supplies, books, and detailed lesson plans. It looked like the office of a dedicated professional teacher. "Mrs. Williams called me today," Marcus began, settling into a chair across from her small desk. Sarah looked up with interest. "About the science program?" "Actually, about a job offer. They want to offer you the third-grade science teacher position." Sarah's eyes widened in shock. She set down the materials she had been organizing and stared at Marcus in disbelief. "They want to hire me as a full-time teacher? Mrs. Williams was very complimentary about your work with the after-school program. Apparently, you've made quite an impression." Sarah was quiet for a long moment, clearly processing this unexpected development. "I don't know what to say. A few weeks ago, I was sleeping in a park, and now I'm being offered exactly the job I've been hoping to find." "How do you feel about it?" Marcus asked gently. "Grateful, excited, a little overwhelmed," Sarah admitted. "Teaching full-time again would be a dream come true, but I'm also concerned about Emma. We've developed such a good working relationship, and she's making such progress." Marcus had been thinking about this same issue. "What if we could make it work for everyone? You could take the teaching position and still tutor Emma after school and on weekends. Emma would benefit from seeing you in your professional element, and you'd have the stability of a full-time job. You'd be willing to continue our arrangement even if I had another job?" "Sarah, what you've done for Emma goes far beyond tutoring. You've helped her discover a love of learning that I don't think she would have found with anyone else. If you're willing to continue working with her, I'd be grateful." Sarah's eyes filled with tears of joy and relief. "Mr. Chen, I can't thank you enough for everything you've done for me. When we met, I had lost hope of ever returning to teaching. You've given me back my career and my confidence." "You've given Emma something even more valuable," Marcus replied. "You've shown her that learning can be an adventure rather than a chore. That's a gift that will benefit her for the rest of her life." The next morning, Sarah called Mrs. Williams to accept the teaching position. Emma was thrilled when she learned the news, though she was initially worried about sharing Sarah with other students. "Don't worry," Sarah assured her. "You'll always be special to me. And think of all the cool science experiments we can do now that I'll have access to the school's laboratory." Over the following days, Marcus watched as Sarah prepared for her, returned to full-time teaching with the enthusiasm of someone who had found their true calling. She spent hours developing innovative lesson plans, creating hands-on learning materials, and researching the latest educational techniques. What impressed Marcus most was how Sarah balanced her excitement about her new job with continued dedication to Emma's individual needs. She maintained their regular tutoring schedule and continued to develop personalized learning experiences for his daughter. One evening, as Marcus was working late in his home office, he heard laughter coming from the kitchen. He found Sarah and Emma conducting what appeared to be a chemistry experiment involving baking soda, vinegar, and food coloring. "We're learning about chemical reactions," Emma explained excitedly as colorful foam erupted from their experimental volcano. "Sarah says this is the same type of reaction that happens inside real volcanoes, just much smaller and safer. And we're also practicing measurement and following instructions precisely," Sarah added. "Science experiments are great for developing attention to detail and logical thinking skills." Marcus realized that he had stumbled into something truly special. Sarah wasn't just an exceptional tutor or teacher. She was someone who understood that education should engage the whole child. She taught academic skills, but she also fostered curiosity, creativity, and critical thinking. As he watched his daughter's face glow with excitement about learning, Marcus felt a profound sense of gratitude. A chance encounter with a homeless woman teaching his daughter through a school fence had led to the best educational experience Emma had ever had. But Marcus was beginning to realize that Sarah's impact on their family extended beyond education. She had brought a warmth and positive energy into their home that had been missing since Emma's mother died. For the first time in years, their house felt like a complete family again. What he didn't yet understand was how deeply Emma had been, thinking about their family dynamics and the surprising request she was about to make that would change everything once again. What he didn't know was that Sarah's impact on their lives was just beginning, and the real surprises were still to come. Marcus woke early the next morning, curious about Sarah's decision but not wanting to pressure her. As he prepared coffee in his kitchen, he glanced toward the guest house and noticed that the lights had come on. Sarah was clearly an early riser. Around 7:30, his phone rang. "Mr. Chen." Sarah's voice was clear but nervous. "I hope it's not too early to call." "Not at all. Did you sleep well?" "Better than I have in months," Sarah admitted. "Mr. Chen, I've thought carefully about your offer, and I'd like to accept it. But I want to propose some additional conditions that might benefit Emma even more." Marcus was intrigued. "I'm listening." "I'd like to create a comprehensive educational enrichment program for Emma, not just homework help. I noticed yesterday that she has natural curiosity and creativity that could be developed further. With your permission, I'd like to design hands-on learning experiences, field trips, and projects that could accelerate her development while keeping learning enjoyable." "That sounds wonderful. What did you have in mind?" "Well, I noticed Emma struggled with math initially, but picked it up quickly once she understood the underlying concepts. I think she could excel in STEM subjects if we approach them through hands-on experiments and real-world applications. We could build simple machines, grow plants to learn biology, even do basic coding if she's interested." Marcus smiled. Sarah's enthusiasm was infectious, and her ideas aligned perfectly with his hopes for Emma's education. "I also think Emma would benefit from exposure to art, music, and different cultures," Sarah continued. "The city has amazing museums, cultural centers, and educational programs that could broaden her perspective significantly." "Sarah, this sounds like exactly what Emma needs. When can you start?" "Today, if that works for you. I know Emma has school, but I could pick her up and work with her afterward. I also thought I might volunteer at her school if they need help. It would give me insight into her classroom learning environment." An hour later, Marcus found himself in his home office on a video call with Emma's school principal, Mrs. Williams. He had decided to be completely transparent about Sarah's situation and qualifications. "Let me understand this correctly, Mr. Chen," Mrs. Williams said, adjusting her glasses. "You've hired a homeless woman with no references to tutor your daughter?" "I've hired a certified teacher who fell on hard times and has demonstrated remarkable skill with Emma," Marcus corrected firmly. "Sarah has a degree in elementary education and clear natural talent. Emma learned more from her in 2 hours than she has from expensive tutors in weeks." Mrs. Williams looked skeptical. "We have strict policies about who can interact with our students. I'm not sure we can allow someone with an unstable background to volunteer." Marcus felt his temper rising but controlled it carefully. "Mrs. Williams, I'm not asking you to make assumptions about Sarah's character based on her temporary housing situation. I'm asking you to evaluate her based on her qualifications and abilities. If you're willing to meet with her, I think you'll be impressed." After some discussion, Mrs. Williams agreed to interview Sarah for possible volunteer opportunities, though her tone suggested she was doing so reluctantly. That afternoon, Sarah arrived at Emma's school wearing a simple but professional outfit that Marcus had helped her purchase that morning during a quick shopping trip. Emma ran to greet her with obvious excitement. "Sarah, Daddy said you're going to be my tutor every day now." "That's right," Sarah smiled, hugging Emma. "And I have some fun learning adventures planned for us." They settled in the school's courtyard where they had met the day before. Sarah had prepared a small bag of educational materials. Colorful manipulatives for math, interesting books, art supplies, and what appeared to be science experiment materials. Today, we're going to learn about the water cycle by creating our own mini weather system, Sarah announced, pulling out a clear plastic container, some ice, and a small lamp. Emma's eyes widened with interest. We can make weather. We can create a model that shows how weather works in nature, Sarah explained, setting up the experiment. This will help you understand the science behind rain, clouds, and evaporation. As they worked together, Marcus watched from his car, where he had parked to observe Sarah's teaching methods. What he saw was remarkable. Sarah had transformed a simple science concept into an engaging, hands-on experience that had Emma completely absorbed. Other children waiting for pickup began to gather around, curious about the experiment. Sarah welcomed them warmly, adjusting her explanations to include the small audience. "Who can tell me what happens when the sun heats up water in the ocean?" Sarah asked. Multiple hands shot up, and she patiently listened to each child's ideas, building on their responses and guiding them toward understanding. Mrs. Williams had come outside to observe as well. Marcus noticed her expression changing, from skepticism to grudging interest as she watched Sarah manage the group of children with skill and enthusiasm. After the other children were picked up, Sarah and Emma continued their experiment while discussing what they were observing. "The water is turning into invisible water vapor and rising up," Emma said excitedly. "And when it hits the cold ice, it turns back into water drops." "Exactly. You're seeing evaporation and condensation in action. This is the same process that creates rain in the sky." Mrs. Williams approached them. "Miss Sarah, could I speak with you for a moment?" Sarah looked nervous but nodded, instructing Emma to continue observing their experiment. "I have to admit I was skeptical about Mr. Chen's request," Mrs. Williams said quietly. "But what I just witnessed was excellent teaching. You have a natural ability to engage children and make complex concepts accessible." "Thank you," Sarah replied. "I genuinely love helping children learn. We actually do need volunteer help in our after-school science program. Our regular volunteer had to step down due to family commitments. If you're interested and can pass a background check, I think you could be a valuable addition to our team." Sarah's face lit up. "I would love that opportunity. I'll have the paperwork ready tomorrow. Can you come in around 3 o'clock? After Mrs. Williams left, Emma bounced excitedly around Sarah. "You're going to work at my school too? This is the best day ever." That evening, as Sarah helped Emma with her regular homework at the kitchen table in the main house, Marcus observed their interaction with growing amazement. Sarah had somehow made fractions, Emma's biggest struggle, seem like a fun puzzle, rather than a dreaded chore. "If we have a pizza cut into 8 pieces and Emma eats 3 pieces, what fraction of the pizza did she eat?" Sarah asked, using actual pictures of pizza slices. 3/8, Emma replied confidently. "Perfect. And what fraction is left?" Emma counted the remaining slices. 5/8. "You're becoming a fraction expert," Sarah praised. "Tomorrow, we'll learn how fractions relate to percentages, and I'll show you how that helps when we go shopping or figure out discounts." Marcus marveled at how Sarah connected every lesson to real-world applications. She was teaching Emma that math wasn't just abstract numbers on a page, but a useful tool for understanding the world around her. After Emma went to bed, Marcus and Sarah sat in his living room discussing Emma's progress and Sarah's plans for upcoming lessons. "I've been thinking about Emma's learning style," Sarah said, pulling out a notebook where she had been documenting her observations. "She's very bright, but I think she's been held back by teaching methods that don't match how her mind works. She needs to see, touch, and experience concepts rather than just memorize them." "Her previous tutors never mentioned anything like that," Marcus said, feeling frustrated with himself for not recognizing his daughter's needs earlier. "Many tutors focus on quick fixes for homework problems rather than understanding the child's learning process," Sarah explained gently. "It's not necessarily their fault. They often don't have time to really get to know each student individually." "And you figured this out in 2 days?" Sarah smiled. I've been observing Emma carefully and asking myself what approaches might work best for her personality and interests. Every child gives you clues if you know how to look for them. As they talked, Marcus found himself sharing more about Emma's struggles in school and his own feelings of inadequacy as a single father trying to balance a demanding career with parenting responsibilities. Emma's mother died when she was 5, Marcus said quietly. Since then, I've been trying to be both parents, but I often feel like I'm failing her, especially with school. I can run a multi-million-dollar company, but I couldn't help my 8-year-old understand multiplication. Sarah's expression was compassionate. You're not failing her, Mr. Chen. Emma is happy, confident, and well-adjusted. Those are the most important things. Academic skills can be taught, but emotional security and self-worth are much harder to build. Emma clearly feels loved and supported. Marcus felt a weight lifting from his shoulders that he hadn't even realized was there. Sarah's perspective helped him see his parenting more objectively and recognize what he was doing right, rather than focusing only on his perceived shortcomings. As Sarah prepared to return to the guest house for the evening, Marcus realized that hiring her was turning out to be beneficial in ways he hadn't expected. She wasn't just helping Emma academically, she was helping their entire family dynamic improve. Sarah tensed slightly at Marcus's words, and he quickly realized his phrasing might have sounded ominous. Nothing complicated, he assured her with a gentle smile. I'm wondering if you'd be interested in tutoring Emma regularly. She clearly responds well to your teaching style, and I can see how much you both enjoy working together. Emma practically bounced in her seat. Really, Daddy? Sarah could be my tutor? Sarah looked conflicted, glancing between Marcus and Emma. That's incredibly generous, but I should be honest with you. I don't have a permanent address right now, and I don't have reliable transportation. I wouldn't want to make promises I can't keep. Marcus had suspected Sarah was homeless based on her earlier comment about staying in the park. Her honesty about her situation only reinforced his growing respect for her character. Where are you staying? He asked gently. There's a shelter downtown, but they're often full. Sometimes I stay in Riverside Park. There's a covered area near the pond that's relatively safe and quiet. Emma's eyes widened with concern. You sleep outside? Isn't it cold and scary? Sometimes it's a bit cold, Sarah admitted. But I have a warm sleeping bag. And it's not too scary because I choose safe spots. Marcus felt a pang of guilt thinking about his spacious mansion while this talented, kind woman was sleeping outdoors. Emma looked distressed by this revelation, her young mind struggling to understand why someone as nice as Sarah wouldn't have a proper home. Sarah, Marcus said slowly, an idea forming in his mind, I have a guest house on my property that's currently empty. It has a full kitchen, bathroom, and comfortable living space. If you're interested in working with Emma regularly, you'd be welcome to stay there. Sarah's eyes widened in shock. Mr. Chen, I couldn't possibly accept such generosity from someone I just met. That's far too much. Actually, it would be helping me out, Marcus replied honestly. Emma needs consistent academic support, and you've already proven you're more effective than any tutor we've tried. Having you nearby would make scheduling much easier. Emma grabbed Sarah's hand across the table. Please say yes. We could work on homework every day, and maybe you could teach me about other fun things too. Sarah looked overwhelmed by their offer. Marcus could see her internal struggle, the practical need for shelter and income warring with her pride and caution about accepting such significant help from strangers. I don't want you to feel obligated, Marcus added. Think of it as a job with housing included. I'd pay you the same rate as Emma's previous tutors, and the guest house would be part of the compensation package. What was the rate? Sarah asked quietly. Marcus named a figure that made Sarah's eyes widen. It was more money than she had made, in months of searching for work. That's very generous, she said slowly, but I'd want to earn it properly. I wouldn't just help with homework. I could develop a comprehensive learning plan for Emma, create engaging educational activities, and maybe even help her get ahead in areas where she shows particular interest or aptitude. Marcus smiled. Even in her desperate circumstances, Sarah was focused on providing value and doing excellent work. That sounds perfect. Would you like to see the guest house tonight and decide? The drive to Marcus's estate took them through increasingly upscale neighborhoods. Sarah grew quiet as they passed mansion after mansion, clearly realizing just how wealthy her new acquaintance was. When they turned through iron gates marked Chen Estate, her nervousness was palpable. "Daddy, is this our house?" Emma asked, as they drove up the long, curved driveway lined with mature oak trees. "Yes, sweetheart. Sarah's never seen it before." The main house was impressive, but not ostentatious. A large colonial-style home with warm lighting glowing from multiple windows. Beautifully landscaped gardens surrounded the property, and a smaller building was visible about 50 yards away from the main house. "That's the guest house," Marcus pointed out as they parked. "It used to be the original farmhouse when this was all agricultural land." The guest house was charming, a restored two-bedroom cottage with white siding and green shutters. Marcus unlocked the door and turned on the lights, revealing a cozy living room with a stone fireplace, comfortable furniture, and built-in bookshelves. "The kitchen is fully equipped," Marcus explained, showing them through the space. "There's a bedroom upstairs and another down here, plus a study that would make a good workspace if you want to prepare lessons or activities for Emma." Sarah walked through the rooms in stunned silence. The guest house was nicer than any apartment she had ever lived in, even when she had been employed full-time. "The internet is connected and there's cable TV," Marcus continued. "You'd have complete privacy, and the only expectation would be helping Emma with her studies for a few hours each day." Emma was exploring excitedly, calling out discoveries from different rooms. "Sarah, there are so many books, and the kitchen has a dishwasher, and look at this cozy bedroom." Sarah stood in the living room, visibly struggling with emotion. Marcus realized this must feel overwhelming after months of uncertainty and hardship. "I know this is a big decision," he said gently. "You don't have to answer tonight. Why don't you stay here this evening, see how it feels, and let me know tomorrow what you think?" "I don't have anything with me except what's in my backpack," Sarah said quietly. "There are clean linens in the closet, basic toiletries in the bathroom, and some non-perishable food in the kitchen," Marcus replied. "Emma and I could pick up anything else you need tomorrow." Emma ran back into the living room and hugged Sarah tightly. "I hope you decide to stay. It would make me so happy to have you here." Sarah knelt down to Emma's level. "You're very sweet, Emma. Let me think about it tonight, okay?" As they prepared to leave Sarah alone to consider the offer, Marcus felt compelled to address her obvious concerns. "Sarah, I want you to know that my offer is completely legitimate. I'm not expecting anything inappropriate, and there are no hidden conditions. Emma clearly benefits from your teaching, and I believe you deserve a chance to get back on your feet. Sometimes good people just need an opportunity." Sarah's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back quickly. "Thank you for saying that, and thank you for treating me with dignity when you had every reason to be suspicious of a stranger talking to your daughter. You've shown me nothing but kindness and professionalism," Marcus replied. "Emma is an excellent judge of character, and she clearly sees something special in you." After ensuring Sarah had Marcus's phone number and knew how to reach them if she needed anything, Marcus and Emma returned to the main house. As they went through Emma's bedtime routine, his daughter couldn't stop talking about their new friend. "Daddy, I really hope Sarah stays," Emma said as Marcus tucked her into bed. "She makes learning fun, and she seems sad about not having a home. We have such a big house. Shouldn't we share it with people who need help?" Marcus smiled at his daughter's compassionate heart. "What do you think about Sarah as a person, Emma? You spent the most time talking with her." "I think she's really smart and really nice," Emma replied without hesitation. and she listens to me like my answers actually matter. Some grown-ups ask questions but don't really care what I say. Sarah cares. As Marcus turned off Emma's bedroom light, he reflected on the unusual day. In his business world, he was accustomed to making quick decisions about people based on resumes, references, and formal interviews. But sometimes the most important qualities, kindness, genuine caring, and natural teaching ability, couldn't be captured on paper. He looked out his bedroom window toward the guest house, where warm light glowed from the windows. Marcus hoped Sarah would decide to accept their offer. For Emma's sake, certainly, but also because he sensed that helping Sarah might be just as beneficial for his own family as it would be for her. What he didn't yet realize was how profoundly this decision would impact all their lives in ways none of them could imagine. Marcus surprised himself with his next words. Actually, Emma has a point. Would you like to join us for dinner? I'd like to hear more about your teaching methods. Sarah's eyes widened in shock. She glanced down at her worn clothes and then back at Marcus, who was clearly a man of considerable wealth based on his expensive suit and luxury car visible in the parking lot. I appreciate the offer, but I'm not really dressed for... Sarah began, but Emma interrupted. Please, Sarah, Daddy, can we go to that pizza place I like? Sarah would love it there. Marcus smiled at his daughter's enthusiasm. Emma had always been friendly, but he rarely saw her connect with adults this quickly. There was something special about the bond that had formed between his daughter and this remarkable young woman. Pizza sounds perfect, Marcus agreed. Sarah, I insist. Besides, I'd like to understand how you made math click for Emma when several expensive tutors couldn't. The drive to Tony's Pizza Palace was filled with Emma's chatter from the back seat. She peppered Sarah with questions about everything from her favorite colors to her thoughts on various cartoon characters. Sarah answered each question with patience and genuine interest, occasionally asking Emma questions that made his daughter think more deeply about her own answers. Marcus found himself stealing glances at Sarah in the rearview mirror. She had a natural way of engaging with Emma that was neither condescending nor overly enthusiastic. She treated his 8-year-old daughter as an intelligent person worth listening to, something that many adults, including some of Marcus's own business associates, failed to do. At the restaurant, Marcus watched as Sarah politely ordered the least expensive item on the menu, a small salad. When Emma protested that Sarah should get pizza like them, Sarah smiled and said she wasn't very hungry. But Marcus noticed how her eyes lingered on the menu prices and realized she was trying not to be a burden. Actually, Marcus said to the waitress, we'll have the large supreme pizza to share plus that salad, and could you bring some of those garlic breadsticks Emma loves? Emma clapped her hands happily, and Sarah looked grateful but slightly uncomfortable with his generosity. As they waited for their food, Emma pulled out her homework again. Sarah, can you help me with this reading comprehension? The questions are really hard. Sarah glanced at Marcus for permission, who nodded encouragingly. As Sarah began working with Emma, Marcus observed her teaching style more carefully. She didn't simply give Emma the answers. Instead, she asked leading questions that guided Emma to discover the answers herself. What do you think the main character was feeling when she lost her pet? Sarah asked. Sad? Emma replied uncertainly. That's a good start. But can you find the words in the story that tell us exactly how sad she was? Sometimes authors use special words to help us understand feelings better. Emma bent over the passage, carefully reading. Oh, it says she was heartbroken and devastated. Those are stronger words than just sad. Exactly. You're becoming a real detective with words, Emma. Marcus was amazed. Emma's regular tutors typically rushed through homework as quickly as possible. They focused on getting correct answers rather than helping Emma develop thinking skills. Sarah was teaching his daughter how to learn, not just what to learn. Sarah, Marcus said during a break in the lesson, you mentioned you have a degree in elementary education. Where did you study? Sarah hesitated for a moment. I graduated from State University 3 years ago. I was working at Lincoln Elementary until the budget cuts hit. Lincoln Elementary, Marcus repeated thoughtfully. He knew that school. It was in one of the city's most challenging neighborhoods, where teachers worked with limited resources and often dealt with students who faced difficult circumstances at home. It wasn't an easy school to work at, Sarah continued, but I loved it. Many of those kids just needed someone to believe in them and find ways to make learning exciting. Emma looked up from her homework. Is that why you're so good at explaining things? Because you helped lots of kids? Sarah's face softened. Every child is different, Emma. Some kids understand things right away, others need more time, and some need completely different approaches. The best part of teaching is finding what works for each student. Their food arrived, and Marcus noticed that Sarah ate her salad slowly, savoring each bite. When Emma offered her some pizza, Sarah initially declined, but Emma's insistence and Marcus's encouragement eventually convinced her to accept a slice. "This is really good," Sarah said, and Marcus could tell she was genuinely enjoying the meal. It made him wonder when she had last eaten a proper dinner. As Emma worked through more homework problems, Marcus found himself asking Sarah about her teaching philosophy and methods. Her answers revealed not only extensive knowledge of child, development, and educational theory, but also a deep passion for helping children learn. "The key is meeting children where they are," Sarah explained. "Traditional education often assumes all kids learn the same way at the same pace, but that's not how minds work. Some children are visual learners, others learn by doing. Some need to hear information multiple times in different ways." "And how do you figure out what works for each child?" Marcus asked. "You watch and listen. Really listen. Kids will tell you what they need if you pay attention to their responses and frustrations." Marcus glanced at Emma, who was successfully working through problems that had brought her to tears just the night before. "You figured out Emma's learning style in 5 minutes," Sarah smiled. "Emma is a visual and kinesthetic learner. She needs to see concepts and manipulate them physically. The traditional worksheet approach wasn't working for her because it's too abstract. When I showed her multiplication with those pebbles, she could touch and move them, which helped her brain make the connections." Why didn't her tutors realize this? Marcus asked, feeling frustrated with himself for not recognizing his daughter's needs. Many tutors focus on covering material quickly rather than understanding how individual students learn. It's not necessarily their fault. They often have pressure to show immediate results in test scores. Emma finished her homework and beamed proudly. "Look, Daddy, I understood all of it." Marcus examined his daughter's work. Not only were the answers correct, but Emma had shown her work clearly and even drawn little diagrams to help her solve some problems. "This is incredible, Emma. You should be proud of yourself." "Sarah helped me understand that math is like solving puzzles," Emma said excitedly. "And reading comprehension is like being a detective looking for clues." As they prepared to leave the restaurant, Emma turned to Sarah with hopeful eyes. "Will I see you again tomorrow? I have more homework, and there's this science project I need to start." Sarah looked uncertain, glancing at Marcus. "I'm not sure, sweetheart. Your daddy might have other plans." Marcus found himself in an unusual position. Every instinct told him to be cautious about getting involved with someone he had just met. But he couldn't ignore what he had witnessed. Sarah had accomplished more with Emma in 2 hours than professional. Tutors had achieved in months. More than that, Emma was genuinely happy. She was excited about learning for the first time in recent memory. As a father, Marcus knew he would be foolish to let this opportunity slip away. "Sarah," he said carefully, "I have a proposition for you." Marcus Chen stepped out of his black Mercedes, adjusting his expensive suit jacket as he glanced at his watch. He was already 20 minutes late to pick up his 8-year-old daughter Emma from her private school. The billionaire tech mogul had been stuck in another board meeting that ran longer than expected, discussing the expansion of his software company into 3 new countries. As his polished leather shoes clicked against the marble steps of Riverside Academy, Marcus felt the familiar weight of guilt settling on his shoulders. This was the third time this month he had arrived late. Emma would be waiting in the after-school care program again, probably wondering why her daddy couldn't manage to show up on time like the other parents. The school's grand hallway was mostly empty now, with only a few staff members cleaning up after the day's activities. Marcus made his way toward the after-school care room, rehearsing another apology in his mind. He would promise Emma they could stop for ice cream on the way home, maybe even go to that new playground she had been asking about for weeks. But when Marcus reached the designated room, it was empty except for Mrs. Patterson, the elderly supervisor, who was stacking chairs. "Mr. Chen," she called out, looking relieved. "Emma is outside in the courtyard. There's a young woman with her who's been helping with homework. I hope that's all right." She seemed very knowledgeable, and Emma was struggling with her math problems. Marcus frowned slightly. The school had strict policies about who could interact with the students. "What young woman? Is she a new teacher?" Mrs. Patterson shook her head, lowering her voice. "Actually, she's not affiliated with the school. She was sitting outside the gates when I noticed Emma talking to her through the fence. The girl looked harmless enough, and when I saw she was genuinely helping Emma with her studies, I thought it would be okay for a few minutes." A surge of protective anger flashed through Marcus. His daughter was talking to a complete stranger? He had paid enormous amounts of money for this private school specifically because of their security measures and careful screening of all staff members. How could they allow some random person to interact with his child? Where exactly are they? Marcus asked, his voice tight with concern. "Through those doors, in the small courtyard by the garden," Mrs. Patterson replied, pointing toward the back of the building. Marcus strode quickly through the hallway and pushed open the heavy glass doors leading to the courtyard. What he saw made him stop in his tracks. Emma was sitting cross-legged on the grass next to a young woman who appeared to be in her early 20s. The woman was wearing clothes that had clearly seen better days, a faded sweater with small holes, jeans that were worn thin at the knees, and sneakers that were held together with what looked like tape. But what struck Marcus most was not her appearance, but the scene before him. Emma's math workbook was spread open between them, and the young woman was patiently explaining something while drawing diagrams in the dirt with a stick. Emma was completely absorbed, nodding enthusiastically, and asking questions. "See, Emma, multiplication is just adding the same number many times," the young woman was saying in a gentle voice. "So when we have 4 times 3, we're really just adding 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3. Let me show you another way to think about it." She arranged small pebbles into groups, demonstrating the concept visually. Emma's eyes lit up, with understanding in a way that Marcus had rarely seen when he tried to help with homework. Usually their study sessions ended in frustration, with Emma in tears and Marcus feeling completely inadequate as a father. "I get it now," Emma exclaimed. "It's like having 3 groups of 4 cookies each." "Exactly," the young woman smiled warmly. "You're really smart, Emma. Sometimes we just need to see things in different ways." Marcus felt a strange mix of emotions watching this interaction. There was still concern about a stranger being so close to his daughter, but he couldn't deny that this person seemed to have a natural gift for teaching. Emma looked happier and more engaged than she had in weeks. He was about to step forward and interrupt when Emma noticed him. "Daddy!" she called out, scrambling to her feet. "You're here! This is Sarah, and she's been helping me with my math homework. She makes it so easy to understand." The young woman, Sarah, looked up at Marcus, and he saw her expression change. Immediately, her warm smile faded, replaced by a look of nervous apprehension. She quickly began gathering Emma's school supplies, clearly preparing to leave. "I'm sorry," Sarah said quietly, not quite meeting Marcus's eyes. "I didn't mean to overstep. Emma seemed upset about her homework, and I just thought I could help for a few minutes." Marcus studied her more closely. Despite her worn clothing, and the fact that she appeared to be homeless, there was something about Sarah that impressed him. Her speech was articulate and educated. Her manner with Emma had been professional and kind, and the teaching method he had just witnessed was more effective than anything Emma's expensive tutors had tried. "It's all right," Marcus found himself saying, though he wasn't entirely sure why. "Emma, go get your backpack from inside. I need to speak with Sarah for a moment." Emma hesitated, looking between her father and her new friend. "Sarah isn't in trouble, is she, Daddy? She was really nice to me." "No trouble," Marcus assured her. "Just go get your things." Once Emma had skipped back toward the building, Marcus turned his full attention to Sarah. She was standing now, clutching a small, worn backpack that seemed to contain all her possessions. Up close, he could see that while her clothes were old and patched, they were clean. Her hair was neatly braided, and despite her circumstances, she carried herself with dignity. "I should explain," Sarah began, her voice steady despite her obvious nervousness. "I wasn't trying to intrude. I've been staying in the park nearby, and I noticed Emma seemed frustrated with her homework. I have a degree in elementary education, so I thought maybe I could help." This revelation surprised Marcus. "You're a teacher?" Sarah's shoulders sagged slightly. "I was. I lost my job 6 months ago when the public school I worked at had budget cuts. I've been looking for work ever since, but positions are scarce, and without a permanent address, it's challenging." Marcus felt a shift in his perspective. This wasn't just some random person who had approached his daughter. This was an educated professional who had fallen on hard times and had genuinely wanted to help a child who was struggling. "The way you explained multiplication to Emma," Marcus said slowly, "in 5 minutes, you accomplished what 3 different tutors couldn't do in weeks." A small, sad smile crossed Sarah's face. "Every child learns differently. Sometimes it just takes finding the right approach." Emma came bounding back with her backpack, interrupting the conversation. "Can Sarah come have dinner with us, Daddy? She could help me with my other homework, too." Marcus looked at his daughter's hopeful face, then back at Sarah, who was shaking her head. "That's very kind, Emma, but I couldn't impose," Sarah said gently. But Marcus found himself considering the possibility. There was something about this young woman that intrigued him beyond her teaching abilities. In a world where people usually approached him because of his wealth and status, Sarah had shown genuine care for his daughter without knowing who he was.